Kathryn Heyman, welcome to Bookshots.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
What's your book about?
Floodline is about a woman who makes the decision to travel to a city destroyed by a flood, and as a result of that decision she almost loses everything dear to her. Fundamentally it's about the possibility of salvation in the midst of disaster.
Now, it's interesting that you describe the book as the story of one woman, because I think of it as the story of two women. The woman that you're talking about is Mikey, who belongs to a religious community and has got a sort of religious purpose in going towards the flood. But there's another fascinating woman in your book, Gina, who's a nurse at a hospital that is caught in this terrible flood. What's happening to Gina?
I wanted Gina to be a character who has no hope, because I have, in contrast, the character of Mikey, who is apparently, on the surface at least, buoyed by faith and by hope. So Gina is a nurse, as you said, in a hospital, and as a result of the circumstances of her life, she is a person possessed of no optimism, no hope, no faith in anything. I really wanted to explore this idea of, faith in each other, faith in it gets us up in the morning. So she has none of that. So she's a senior nurse. She's been working in this hospital for 2 decades. She has no other life. She has, no children, no lover, and she's been stuck in the hospital for 3 days after the flood started. And as a result of the circumstances of the flood and, the loss of power, she finds herself having to make more and more extreme ethical decisions.
What was the genesis of this book? Because while I was reading it, obviously I was replaying in my mind the images of the floods in Queensland. Is that how it started for you?
I had read about some events that had happened in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, and it was in some events in one of the city's major hospitals, Memorial Hospital, that were about the medics and the medical staff having to make really seemingly impossible moral and ethical decisions. And as a writer, I'm terribly interested in what you do in the midst of trauma. I'm terribly interested in resilience and redemption in the midst of chaos. I'd begun to think about a flood. This is the truth, actually. I had begun to think it's in the midst of a flood, and I knew I wanted to write about faith and hope, and actually at that stage I wanted to be very satirical. And then, so I'd kind of begun this idea of a flood and perhaps this episode in a hospital, and then the Queensland floods happened. My sister is a nurse, and she was a nurse in Brisbane. So I'd phoned her, and she said, I can't, we're going to be, everyone who's close to the hospital, all, are on lockdown, and I'm going to be here for quite some time. So somehow that image then of this nurse who was stuck in this hospital came together with the story I'd had of Memorial.
You say that the book is really about resilience and about putting people under pressure in an extreme situation. I'm just wondering, have you ever been in an extreme situation and been tested in some kind of way where you found out something about yourself in terms of your own resilience? I
got into a fight with a very big man in Turkey who had bashed his wife. And it was one of those situations where I was on a boat with a load of British people. It was a kind of touristy thing. And when we all got off the boat, all these British men were going, "Oh, good on you. Oh, well, that's so, yes, I was just about to get up and do something." And I was thinking, well, you didn't. So I think of myself as someone who will leap in. I'm not sure, though, that, I think before I had children, I was that person. And I worry that actually scratch beneath the surface now, and I might be the person who closes my apartment door and, tells the refugee to go away if it's too dangerous. So probably that's why I keep going back to that territory. I want to kind of remind myself of what sort of person I should be.